Yo, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of Brave. So Brave is directed by Mark Andrews and Brenda Chapman and stars Kelly MacDonald, Billy Connolly, Emma Thompson, and Craig Ferguson. So Brave is about Merida, who is this princess who doesn't really like the way her mother treats her, so she goes out to a witch to cast a spell that changes her. So she can change, and ends up changing her into a bear, and she has to find out a way to turn her back before two sun nights. So for the positives, I think that the third act of the film was done very well. Like, the climax of the film was very intense and very well written, as well as the ending was pretty sad. I mean, it showed how much of a compelling character Merida can be. So I think the ending was done very well, and it's a perfect closure for this film. Eleanor's a really good mother character. I mean, she's overprotective at first, but, like, her development is what makes her a good character. Like her development is kind of like how she appreciates more Merida and lets her make more of her own decisions, so, which kind of reminds me of King Harold a bit with that kind of development because of how good it is. And her bond with Merida is also just done very well. Like, the mother-daughter relationship aspect of this movie was done very well on how it's done. And then I don't think it could have been done that much better. Merida as a protagonist is kind of underrated. She doesn't really get mentioned that much, so I do find her to be kind of underrated because you can actually, like, feel for the character and relate to the character because you know, sometimes parents can be overprotective, so you can relate to her, and her development is done really well and how she ended up making the decision, and I do like the way it was. And I do think the animation was really great, and you can tell they put a lot of time and effort into this. Like the character designs are just really good. I really like how they made them look like humans, as well as, like, the design of the bear. It is done pretty well, and as well as Merida herself. Like animating that hair must have took a while, because I definitely think they made it look really good in animation, and then you can tell it took a lot of time to render it as they actually, it looks pretty good on screen. And then there's the background designs, which look really great. Like, the woods just looks like they took a lot of time into it and looks really good, as well as the entire place where they rule looks really good, as well as the witches cabin thing place. I think they did a great job animating that, and it's really impressive at how great it looks and still holds up this many years later. The voice acting is just great. It's with how well each actor and actress did is just really great, and they each match the character's emotions, so they really cared about their character and actually cared about this movie, so I think they all did a great job. With that said, this movie does have its flaws, and it's not a perfect movie. Like, the story is just inconsistent, because sometimes it does feel like they're trying to make it about Merida marrying someone, but then sometimes it goes to the mother and daughter kind of story, and I do feel like that's pretty inconsistent with how it is, because it just kind of goes back and forth between them, and it just feels really inconsistent. And the plot is just not very good. I mean, the first two acts are just really predictable. Sure, the third act was a huge step up, like I mentioned, but honestly, the first two acts were just really bland and predictable. I mean, I could predict nearly every move, and it's just really predictable, and I didn't really like it to be that bland. I wish they wrote it a bit better. And Fergus, Merida's father, just feels like a really weak character. I mean, like, as a father figure, he really isn't developed that much and doesn't really feel like he's focused that often. It seems like most of the time he's kind of just in there to play off some jokes rather than having some character. Like, he doesn't really have that many compelling scenes with Merida, which I think would have made his character a bit better, because he really only has a 2. And as well, it doesn't really help that, like, his marriage with his wife doesn't really feel that much like a marriage, as it's not really developed, and it doesn't really feel like you get that much as it's a marriage, because it just feels a bit forced. Or it seems like they don't really like each other that often because they always like disagree with each other. I'm not really too big of a fan of the whole subplot thing of that whole like other kingdoms coming in to like you try to marry Merida, and I like I said, it kind of just makes the story feel a bit more inconsistent, and just kind of mentions with it. Like the subplot is just, I feel like it's a bit unnecessary as the main storyline's like completely different from it. It doesn't really feel like it connects with it, so it's just not very good. Honestly, that bear, that's the villain of the movie, honestly just feels really weak. I mean, he doesn't really do much in the movie. He just kind of is the one that Fergus wants to hunt and that they want to hunt because of one thing that happened in the past. And it doesn't really feel like that much of a villain, and doesn't really feel like a character to me, so it's just really weak to me. The humor in this movie is just really bad and feels forced. I mean, it feels like it's mainly just played for the kids most of the time. And most of the jokes come from like her three little brothers, and honestly, they're not really funny. Funny as comic relief characters, so it doesn't really help. And as well as like the jokes that they try to put on for them just don't work for me. As well as, like I mentioned earlier, like the jokes that Fergus tries to put out, they don't really feel, they just feel really forced, and just, I don't really laugh at them for that reason. And just, I feel like the humor in this movie just feels really forced overall, and just not very good. As I kind of mentioned in the humor part, like her three little brothers just are not really good characters. I mean, the entire point of them is just for comic relief, which I get. Comic relief characters can work, but I just don't feel like they're funny characters. They just kind of pull off a lot of weak jokes, and it just doesn't really work at all. So their characters turn out really weak. So overall, Brave isn't exactly a bad movie, but it's also not a good movie, as it does have a good amount of great things about it, but also has a good amount of bad things about it. So I'm gonna give Brave a 6 out of 10. That was my review of Brave. What are your thoughts on Brave? Tell me in the comments below, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.